You're watching the EdReach Network.
And one. And this is the Google Educast, part of the EdReach Network, giving educators a voice, a big voice. And now your host, Diane Main.
Hi, welcome to the Google Educast. This is episode 37, and this is the show where we talk about the educational applications for Google products, including news, tools, tips and tricks, and classroom applications. I'll be your host this week, Diane Main, and this week we have a great group, starting with...
Hi, I'm John Silwash.
And hello, my name is Chris Betcher.
I'm
Sean Williams.
Oh,
Nice to see ya.
Sean Williams and Kim Zimmer. All right. So our first segment in the news. Before we jump into the news, I think John and Sean, you were both at the Chromebook Summit last week, were you not?
Yes,
we were.
In Mountain View. So tell us a little bit about that. What was going on over there?
Google is really putting a lot of resources into the Chromebook, their new hardware device that runs Chrome OS, and they invited out a group of Google certified teachers, trainers, and Google Apps resellers to just kind of get an update on the Chromebook and give some feedback to the Google and how they can improve the product. And it was really good. There's some really neat things on the horizon that will really make the Chromebook a good choice for educators. And we'll talk about a couple of things today in the Chromebooks, the Chrome web store that I think the people will find interesting. But it was a good time.
Yeah, I noticed in our show notes we have a lot of references to Chromebooks sprinkled throughout. Sean, what's
We're going to
something...
have Chrome on the mind.
Yes, we're totally thinking about it. And John's even got it on his shirt. Sean,
Yes.
where's your Chromebook t-shirt?
Chromebook shirt.
My Chromebook t-shirt, I wore it yesterday, so it's in the wash.
Oh, okay.
I didn't have
John's is on the sew wash.
Oh, nice.
I thought it would say my other computer is a data center.
What did the other one say? There was another one that said, I'll have to think about it, because it was...
I like the new videos that are like 16 to 18 seconds long. And how do you tell a Chromebook it's sexy? Oh, you sexy. It's so funny.
I like how do you back
Have
up
you
a
guys all
Chromebook.
seen those? Yeah.
But-
Oh, is that a bunny? Oh, love it. So, yeah, Sil made a playlist, and we've got those available in the show notes.
We're going
a
to
little
check that
later
out
on.
later, yeah?
Yes, we are.
Excellent.
Okay, so let's see. Last week, while we were doing the show, we talked a little bit about the black bar.
The black
And
bar.
we were all experiencing different levels of black barriness during the show, and in different windows even on the same computer, depending on what you were logged into. So we've got some links in the show notes, and Google has abandoned the drop-down and going back to the black bar. Sean, you threw that in there. What do you want to tell us about that?
Well, I was relieved to finally get word on it, really, because like one of my machines I had the black bar, the other machine I had the drop down, and then I had a third machine that it seemed to depend on what network I was on, like whether I had the drop down or not. So then after watching your show last week when everybody was having various levels of black barriness,
So that's the official term? That's technical.
over the weekend I noticed I had yet a new black bar going, and so that's why I started doing some research, going, wait a second, what is going on here? And it seems like Google finally did away with the pull down and went with officially saying they're going to keep the black bar, but it's going to be a little bit different from that ugly one that appeared over the summer.
Yeah,
It wasn't
I didn't
that
mind the
ugly.
ugly one. I like the ugly one.
It wasn't that bad, but it wasn't.
This one definitely
Yeah,
surfaces
right.
more stuff more obviously. But it was
Yeah.
interesting because my main Gmail account has the big new black bar. My apps account does not, and yet I'm currently signed into my normal Gmail account in an incognito window, and I don't have the big black bar. So it's kind of all over the shop at the moment.
Yeah, it's how
Yeah.
Google rolls, you know?
So did anybody like the drop-down?
No.
No,
I
didn't
did.
like it either. Every time I
did. I
moused
liked
over
it a lot.
it threw stuff at me I did not want to deal with. It's like I just happened to be in that neighborhood, and then I had to have,
I liked
I would've
the
liked it
pull-down
better
bar.
if
from
you-
the options.
I would have liked it better if you could have decided which order things were in, and there
Yeah.
was a bit of a hack that you could do that, but it was messy, and I turned it off. But I still find it strange that Sites is not in this. Sites is not in any of the ones across the top, and it's not even in the More menu, and I cannot figure that out.
I
We
think
had a little
actually going to
discussion
be-
about that today.
Yeah, I'm super annoyed about that because if they roll that over to apps, our main we are this week moving to Gmail, so yippee skippy. So I've been training everyone for the past 3 days, all the administrators, and of course I'm like, Sites, we build our entire district resources database, like with all the PDFs and downloads and forms that we use in our district in Google Sites. And so I've been showing them all week, oh look, see there's Sites, and when it rolls over into our apps domain, whoop, where's Sites?
You'd have to think, though, when it rolls over into the apps domain, especially, that they would have to, in the
I hope.
dashboard, give you the ability to define what's in that bar.
I really hope
Surely.
so.
that would be
Yeah,
nice.
I'd like it to depend on what I use if possible, but
Yeah.
that might be too much.
Right, or how frequently you go to something, it starts to pop.
Yeah.
That would make
Well,
sense.
you'd think, though, that if, I mean, it's possible, I know of school districts that enable Docs, but they don't enable Gmail. So you'd have to think that if you've got something not enabled in an apps account, then it's not going to appear in the bar, otherwise that's pretty illogical.
Or in the dashboard, an administrator should be able to say what shows up in the black bar
Exactly,
for everyone.
yeah.
That would be awesome.
I should try checking because I think the Gmail shows up. Even if you've got it disabled, you'll just never get any messages in it.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Because we've got the Gmail disabled in our student domain, so I'll have to take a look at that.
There you go.
So,
Get it together, Google.
so Sean posted 2 links. One is in the Google blog, and then the other is PC World Magazine had an article. And those are in the show notes. And then also this week, Google Docs started its own Google Plus page specifically for Google Docs. Chris, did you want to share some stuff about that?
There's not a lot to say other than it's good to see that a lot of the Google properties are now coming onto Plus, and I'm hoping that that becomes a way of being able to have some communication with those teams. We're having an issue at the moment with our Google Docs account because every time we go to print a spreadsheet, it crashes. Chrome just falls over. And I can't find an answer about it. Well, yeah, apparently. It's a funny way of telling us that.
I said you're not supposed to be printing.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Go paperless, man.
So given that Google is one of those companies that it's kind of hard to talk to a human being sometimes and get answers to stuff, I'm hoping that maybe because some of these teams are now on Plus, it might be a good way to open some of that dialogue up.
Yeah.
I've noticed yesterday and today a lot of hangouts that they've been having about different things, so that's pretty cool.
Yep.
The
Exactly.
Docs team seems to be hanging out,
Yeah.
doing a lot of hangouts.
Yeah. John, what were you going to say?
Well, just one thing I've really been impressed with about Google, what Chris said is true. Sometimes it is difficult to talk to a person, but I will tell you that they are extremely responsive to user feedback. Even when we were at the Chromebook Summit, they're asking for feedback, they're actively taking notes, and they change stuff fast. Like one of the announcements that we're going to talk about today, they previewed for us at the Chromebook Summit. And that was totally based on feedback. So, users who are listening, make sure that you post suggestions in forums and the message boards because they really do listen. It doesn't often seem like the message is being heard, but they're pretty swift at making changes.
Sure. I think there's 2 aspects to that, though. There's the wish list stuff. There's the things that I wish were in the product, and you can express that, and hopefully the engineers listen and put them in. But there's also the other more annoying when something is supposed to work a certain way and it doesn't, and then often it's very difficult to find a place to turn then. For some of the stuff that's covered under the Google Apps service level agreement, obviously they have to, you log a call, they have to get that fixed pretty quickly. But for some of the other stuff, the more bizarre questions, sometimes it's just nice to have somewhere to turn.
Yeah,
I have to
and
say,
I found
being-
that as a Google certified trainer that I end up getting a lot of those questions, and I'm very grateful for all of you and the other GCTs who can
I was just going to say the
answer
same
them.
thing.
Exactly.
Being a part of groups that are kind of all focused on especially the education arena for using Google Apps has been helpful because I don't know. That's where I always get my answers. I go to Twitter and usually tag it with the Google CT tag, but then I also go to the group and ask a question if I can't get an answer.
Yep. Good
But speaking of announcements regarding Chromebooks, Chris, you must be so excited. Did you get an engagement gift?
No, not exactly.
Tell us.
Tell us
Show notes?
which one about the Chromebooks.
The one in his show notes. Yeah.
The one in the show notes.
Yeah.
Look, I saw on the Google Certified Teachers mailing list there was a comment about Chromebooks and wanting some people to come in and do some demos, and I kind of half-jokingly made the remark about, well, when are we going to get them in Australia?
I remember
To
that.
which Dana replied, and she said, well, as of last week, they're now available. So I made some inquiries, spoke to Inam Hussain, who's the Google Chromebook manager in Singapore, and so the story is they signed the contracts last week, and Chromebooks start to go on sale in Australia as of now, which is very exciting. There's two models. We get this is all old news to you guys, but it's exciting for us. But we get the 3G and the 3G plus Wi-Fi models, and there's a 3-year plan where you just pay a per user cost, and you get all the support and the machine and on-site warranty and the whole thing. Or there's a 1-year plan where you buy the machine outright, and then after the 1 year you pay like I think it's a $5 per user per month maintenance fee for the use of the dashboard and the licensing. So, I haven't got my hands on too many of these things yet. I played with them at the GTA, but it'd be nice to get some in the wild and start doing some stuff with them.
Yeah. Chris, is it Acer or Samsung?
I believe it's Samsung.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that's
Sounds
when I
pretty
have that
similar
one.
to.
It's good, good machine.
Cool. So that's really good news because I know you're the one person that I know personally that's been really waiting on this, but I know there's a lot of educators in Australia that have been just waiting and wanting this to happen. So,
for any Australians who are listening to this, apparently the story is you can get them directly from Google, or there are 4 resellers. I don't know their names yet, but so they have 4 partners, but you can go directly to Google.
Excellent.
I want to make a very important distinction, and I feel bad for some educators. I've got some IT directors and principals who went out to Best Buy, Amazon, Newegg, and bought 3, 4, 5 Chromebooks as test machines. And they take them home, and then they say, "Oh, how do I set up the cPanel to manage them?" So you cannot. I repeat, you cannot manage a Chromebook purchased through any of the big box retailers at all. It doesn't work. The only way you can get the management console is by purchasing them directly through Google or through one of the resellers, who gets them from Google. So there's a whole bunch of people in my groups who got all these Chromebooks that aren't going to work, and they're very confused. And so Google hasn't made that very clear. Now, the Chromebook works. It's a fine machine, but if you're hoping to, test out and explore the management side of things through the Google Apps domain, you cannot get them from Amazon or any of those other places.
Yeah, that's good to
So
know.
would I be able to log in, just not, I wouldn't be controlling the Chromebook itself, I would just be able to use it as a portal to get into the same stuff I use my laptop for now? In terms of using my
it works
apps
fine
domains?
on the web. The management console allows you to do things like set a proxy so it's filtered, to limit what apps and what extensions can be installed. You can force open tabs, preload tabs upon login,
Right.
track users, block users, restrict users, things like that. The cPanel doesn't show up. There's actually a hardware setting Google has to flip the switch in order for all that to be activated.
Cool. Good to know.
Okay, so
Hey, John?
that's important to know.
Kim,
Go ahead,
John?
Kim.
Real quick, if you don't buy the 3G connection and whatever you have XYZ wire filter set up in your school district, are the Chromebooks working with all web filters for the most part? Is that what you've heard?
Yeah, from what I know, it's just a proxy filter. I mean, you just throw the URL into the management console, and all traffic is routed through that address.
Okay.
Not sophisticated at all.
Okay.
I work with a company called NewMind. They're one of the first resellers in the U.S. They're also in Michigan, and to help schools test them out with the management console, they've set up a loaner program.
Okay.
So we will mail out 3 or 4 books to someone, have them test it. They can see the cPanel. We'll give them like 2 weeks to do. we are slammed. We have like a 3-week waiting list. We've got dozens of schools who have signed up. But right now, because the minimum order for Google is 10 units,
Okay.
that's $2,000 is kind of expensive for a pilot. So that's a way that you can test them out. A lot of the resellers are offering that service.
Okay.
Yeah, that's some good stuff to know about the logistics of actually implementing this, because this is the direction a lot of schools and districts are looking at turning. But there's certain things you're going to want to know before you move forward and spend any money. So going through Google, if you want to have the cPanel to manage all the machines themselves, is very important.
Yep.
So that kind of moves us into our second segment, tool shout out. We're going to take an in-depth look really just at the Chrome Web Store, because a new development is that there are subcategories in the Chrome Web Store, and we've got a link to that in the show notes. Sean, did you want to talk a little bit about what that looks like?
Well, yeah, I was pretty excited to hear about this because the web store had some very generic categories before, but now they've got it broken down into business tools, education, entertainment, games, extensions, all of these different subsections. And when you click on them, you can get into, like, for instance, I just clicked on education. There's academic resources, family, foreign language, teacher.
First thing I clicked on was games.
Those are educational.
Sure, there are. I was playing
Zombie Drop.
I was playing Zombie Drop with my.
Were you doing that again today?
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's kind of the. If we finish our lab early, we have time to do a little physics practice with Zombie Drop. So that was fun, but I like it because if you spend any time in the Chrome Web Store, you'll notice that it's a never-ending scroll.
Yeah.
So, like, you can go through these and search for one, and you'll be going forever. So now having it broken down into, say, academic resources, and then it's still a never-ending scroll, but it's a little more manageable.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're in there,
it's a focused, never-ending scroll.
Yeah. And if you're in there looking at them, you can notice that the first batch of results there's kind of the big representation with a couple of little ones next to it. But then as you go down, they get into really much smaller, just like kind of a little. It's almost a little more like the iTunes store.
Well, I know, like when I got my first iOS device, if I had to just dig through apps, I'd have been freaked out. I like that they're categorized, so this will be good for me. So I've just started using Chrome a lot.
Totally, and just a little heads up: the ones that have more real estate are the ones that have been vetted by Google and kind of got the nod that it works well with Chrome, and at least from a developer's standpoint, it should play nice and work trouble-free. Then when you get down to the lower ones, they pass the test. They're in the Chrome store, but maybe not as well supported.
Good to know.
Cool.
All right, well, that's cool. We actually are cutting this segment a little short just because we spent a lot of time talking about the Chrome Summit and some other things up front. But don't forget, listeners, add your location to our shared Google map. The link is in the show notes. And Sean, did you have anything else to share about the Chrome Web Store?
No, I'm loving the Chrome Web Store. I find something new in there like every day. And now that it's into categories for me, I like it.
And Diane, I might just go a bit out of order here, but it's kind of piggybacks nicely on what Sean was just saying. There's an extension that I found while I was browsing around in there that I hadn't seen before called World Time Buddy.
Perfect,
because so many of us these days deal with people in different parts of the world and trying to line up things for happening at a particular time, finding an easy way to do that is not always easy. So I found this extension called World Time Buddy, which is great. And what I like about it, you can put in your own cities, and it will sort of layer them across the screen, and you can look vertically down and see what time it is in all those cities, which is nice. But then if you click on that vertical bar, a little set of menus appear across the top of it where you can send that list of world time to Gmail, or you can send it to a calendar appointment, or you can. There's a whole bunch of other functionality that ties in really nicely with the rest of the Google apps. So I thought it was a really
cool.
neat. Yeah, it's a good tool.
I just moved that in the show notes because that's now the first item in our third segment, and that was the first item in our third segment. Yeah, that's a good one, especially for us. We're all in different time zones.
Yeah, that is.
Cool.
I love that. Great find. Great share.
Yay.
Awesome. And then, let's see here. Oh, I just added a link in the playlist. I don't know if we're going to have time to really look at any of these, but I highly recommend you go and look at the whole series. I think there's like 11 cute little super fun, very quick videos about Chromebooks. Jim Sill made a playlist, so I linked to his playlist, and it's, oh my gosh, they're so cute. So I think you should go watch them.
Sean, can we play the, are you loading it up? Play the how to back up a Chromebook. That's the best one. While we're on the topic of Chromebooks and the App Store, I just want to emphasize one of the things that I felt very strongly when I was at the Chromebook Summit is Google is pouring resources into HTML5. I mean, they are doing everything they can to eliminate OS-specific apps and have everything being developed into HTML5 so that you have the same experience whether you're running it on an iOS device or a Chromebook or an Android device. And I think it's the right approach because for developers, it's a lot cheaper to write one app that works on everything rather than write an iOS app and an Android app and a BlackBerry app, etc. So tell your kids if they're into programming, you want to be an HTML5 programmer because there's going to be a huge demand for it in the next few years.
Well, and it makes sense because it's HTML5 is using the web as the platform rather than depending on the device.
I heard someone say today, how can you tell whether a site you're looking at is written in HTML or HTML5? Apparently it's whether it works in Internet Explorer or not.
I saw that too. If it doesn't work, it's HTML5.
HTML5. All right, play that video for us, Sean.
IE.
Okay,
Go, Sean.
so here it is.
Take your headphones out.
You back up a Chromebook. You just backed up a Chromebook.
Oh no, the video's not coming from me.
Did that work?
Well, you know
We heard the audio, but not the...
we got the audio, but then the picture didn't come. You know what, though? Oh, here it goes. Oh, this is good. Smarty Pants. This is a different one.
Oh, maybe I can do it this way. Hold on a sec.
Back. There you go. Now you're seeing the video. That's how you back up a Chromebook. I'll do this. I'll do the sound. Oh, is that a bunny? That's what he says. I've watched it like 8 times, so I know.
And it never gets old.
They're so cute. The best one, though, I don't know. How do you tell a Chromebook you're sexy? You're sexy. It's so good. It's so, like, why? I don't know. Anyway.
Well, I found it.
Yeah, I bet you did. Head bouncing guy there. So anyway, they're very cute, and I'll just keep talking while he shows videos. So now, John, did you add this part in people who have Chromebooks?
I added that in.
Or is that Kim? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's funny that you put that in the show notes, and we're kind of talking about why would a district be silly not to look into Chromebooks. And you said, Kim, that your district is really hung up on the management side of things.
Yeah.
And how do you prevent kids from installing apps? So go ahead and say what you wanted to ask, and then maybe some of us that have dealt with it can answer it.
Our experience with Chrome, I mean, we are a Google district. We installed Chrome on the kids' browsers first, part of the school year, and they were completely abusing the extensions. We had kids running millions of things in the background. It was slowing down our bandwidth. They had installed all these apps. We didn't anticipate that they would be doing this, and it's in the AUP that they can't do it, but we couldn't prevent it, yada yada. So anyways, in addition to that, we have this filter called Lightspeed that I think a lot of districts, at least around the Midwest, have. I don't know, Lightspeed filter. And Lightspeed was saying that they don't, I could be speaking completely wrong, but somehow, some way, they were saying they don't support Chrome, or they can't prevent, like, the incognito window. They can't do anything to filter that. It's how you kind of squeeze through that filter. So it had something to do with Lightspeed and Chrome. And I'm assuming the same would hold true for the Chromebooks, and I want to be proven wrong. You know,
Actually, isn't that the part that you can control by having a Chromebook?
Right. Well, that's what I'm hoping, right?
That's what I want to hear.
Yeah.
So a couple of things I can definitely speak to. The first is the Chrome management panel does include a specific whitelist for apps.
Okay.
So you can either turn them all on, or you literally just list. Each app has its own code.
Okay.
And so you just copy and paste in the codes of all the apps that you want to allow, and that is it.
Great.
There are some really cool things that are coming out that I am sworn to secrecy and not allowed to say about.
NDA,
but it will only get better.
Okay, what about extensions, like the high five and like all the animated crazy extensions?
Yeah, everything in the Chrome Web Store all has a unique ID,
Okay.
and you can automatically set those. But now the drawback, and I mean this is kind of a gotcha, is that you have to purchase the cPanel. You have to have access to that.
Okay.
So if you just buy Chromebooks, you won't get it. You've got to have the management piece as well.
Okay.
As far as the Lightspeed goes, I'll try to look into it.
Thank you.
Right now, it just says, you know, what's your proxy filter, and you put it in.
Okay.
I don't know specifically about Lightspeed.
Okay, great. And then price points, do you want to just cover what are
So
we talking?
that cPanel thing, that's the thing I mentioned before that costs the $5 a month.
Okay.
So if you want to keep it after your lease is
I
up.
keep it up, yep.
Yeah, let me pull up the prices. They're very reasonable. There's a lot of options depending on what device you get.
Okay.
I think that the Samsung model seems to be the most popular for schools.
Mm-hmm.
It's more expensive, but it is more durable, and it's a little bit faster as well. So the Samsung, you can purchase it. If you purchase it outright, it's $350. That's for the Wi-Fi, and it's $450 for the 3G. That's if you purchase it outright. Now, if you buy it through Google, that includes their 1-year warranty and 1 year of the cPanel included with it.
Okay.
So the warranty is pretty cool. Any hardware defects, they overnight you a new Chromebook and then you ship the old one back. Now, it doesn't cover screen breakage, water damage, things like that. It's your typical hardware warranty.
It's the basics.
Yep.
So it is a back-to-base warranty. It's not an on-site warranty, right?
Well, not exactly, but the basic premise is these things are so cheap that there's nothing on the device that you just swap them out. There's no reason you need to repair the same device.
Yeah.
Because everything is stored in the cloud. So if it breaks, they immediately ship one to you, and you send the old one back.
Sure.
There's nothing to back up.
Sorry, if I missed it before. What was the outright buy price for you guys?
$350.
$350. Okay, yeah, it's $520 something here.
Australian,
And then Google does have. It's not a lease program. They wanted us to be very clear about that. It's a purchase plan. A financing model. It's $20 a month for 3 years. So it's a little more expensive because they're financing it for you, but if you're concerned about conserving cash, it's a great option. And that does include the cPanel as well for 3 years.
Oh,
Wow.
that's good.
The neat
And then you
thing
get to
is,
keep
at
the
the end of the
machines.
3 years, you keep the devices, and then you sign a new contract, and they ship you entirely new ones.
Wow.
Oh, really?
Great.
Yeah.
So
It's a
basically
way
what they're
affordable plan
saying is
compared
that
to
there's
some
a
other-
3-year shelf life on these, and they're counting that they will have hardware upgrades in 3 years that will make the old ones nearly obsolete.
Okay.
So eventually they'll drop support, and they won't be able to run the newest versions of everything.
Okay.
Cool.
Neat, John. Thanks.
But I'm really interested in, when we're done here, I'm going to go read this iPad Chromebook showdown, because I see them as being really two completely different devices, and I actually need to do some research on this for something, and this is so timely. This is being basically dropped in my lap. But, you know how I think about it, and I'm curious to see how other people think about it. We don't have a ton of time to go into it right now, but I'm glad that you've got that link in there. I don't know who put that in there, but thank you, because I'm going to go spend some time on that.
Yeah. Diane, you are totally right.
Is that in your blog, John?
Yeah, that's my blog.
Oh, awesome. Thanks.
The iPad Chromebook comparison is terrible. It's a horrible comparison, but it's what everybody's doing.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to be prepared to speak it, because these are the hot two devices, and they are totally different. It's like a hammer and a screwdriver. But
I would want to have one of each, given a choice, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I would want one of each, because I would do different things with the iPad. Right. Well, no, I mean, even for anything, there are things I would want to do on the iPad, and there's things I would do with the Chromebook, and they don't do the same things.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
But they have important needs. But what if you're looking at a one-to-one program with students, what's going to be the tool they're going to get the most use out of on a day-to-day basis? That's going to be like the ubiquitous technology that we always hear about, as opposed to the teacher trying to figure out a way to cram it in there. In terms of adaptation of what they're doing now using that tool. So. Yeah, so we're gonna lose Chris in a few minutes. So I actually want to have us jump ahead a little bit. Chris, you had some stuff that you put in here after the Chromebook Ninja tips, which we can come back to. You had something about the new look in Gmail, and this is important. I want you to be the one to share that.
This was something that happened to us today, and I think if it happened to us, it might happen to other people. So just a tip for you. We've got a Google Apps school going, and we had all of our users move across to the new look of Gmail, which they like. But two people in the last 2 days have accidentally switched back to the old look of Gmail. And they've completely lost the button at the bottom of the screen in order to switch back to the new look. So they've been stuck with old look, which they hate. And so we got a bit stuck. And I managed to put a call into our Google support people who logged a call with Google directly, and we were waiting on an answer. And I thought, I'll just come try a couple of things. One of the users, we fixed it by simply logging them out and logging them in again, and then realising that the little button at the bottom of the screen that says switch to the new look was hiding underneath her tasks pane, which was minimised at the bottom of the screen, and it was overlaying on top of that. So that was an easy fix. The other one was not so easy, because we'd done the log in and log out, we'd cleared the cache, we'd done everything we could think of to try and figure out why the link was not there to switch back to the new look. And we eventually fixed it. I turned off all the Labs features. That didn't do it. Then I went and turned off all the Chrome extensions, and suddenly the button appeared. So I don't know which Chrome extension it was. If I was more scientific about it, I would have turned them off one by one. But just for anyone else that might get caught out by that and can't find the button, that may be the reason that simply the extensions are playing havoc with it. Just a little tip.
All right, good to know, because a lot of us work with a number of teachers who may not be as tech savvy as the people gathered here, and it's good to know how to fix it
Exactly.
if we need to.
And again, that was one of the problems I was saying before, that like sometimes it's hard to get answers to those sorts of questions, and yet you've got users screaming at you saying, I hate it the way it is, to make it go back, and you just don't know where to turn for an answer. So anyway, it was good to sort it out.
Excellent, good to know. Okay, and then Chris, you also had something in here about the text formatting. Can you throw it down in 2 minutes?
Absolutely. The other quick tip that's kind of handy to know, most of you know that if you want to cut something, it's Control-X, copy is Control-C, and paste is Control-V. Or if you're on a Mac, it's Command-X, C, and V. It's good to know that sometimes when you're working with Google Docs and you copy some text from somewhere and you go and paste it into a doc, it doesn't always, it brings the old formatting across, and then you've got to go through and select it all and change it to the correct font and the correct size and everything. So a little tip is if you hold down Control-Shift-V, or on a Mac Command-Shift-V, it will actually inherit the formatting settings from the target document. And so it will inherit the correct settings for where it's going rather than the old settings from where it's come from.
So you still do Command or Control-C to copy normal, right? And then
Yep,
it's just
exactly.
when you paste it, it's different.
Correct. So let's say, for example, you had, I don't know, a Word document or some text off the internet or something that you wanted
Sure.
to take and paste it into a Google Doc.
Sure.
Often if you copy that normally with Control-C,
Uh-huh.
and then you come across to the doc and you simply go Control-V,
Yeah.
you get all sorts of funny formatting. If you go Control-V or Shift-Command-V,
Uh-huh.
it will inherit the target settings, not the source settings.
So you just got to get in the hang of using Shift when you do that. Control-C,
Yeah,
Control-V.
Exactly. And it's a good tip, especially with the Google Doc stuff, because that is something that tends to happen a fair bit where it screws up the formatting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, our kids blog and they do all their drafting actually in Google Docs typically. Or they'll write like a book review in Google Docs because they've been doing some editing, and then they'll copy it over to their blog, and it's all hosed up when they do that. So this is great. I'm going to go test it on WordPress. Do you know, I mean...
I believe this is not a Google Docs feature as much as it is a operating system feature.
It's an operating system
and
feature?
a lot of different tools support that.
It's a great tip.
Nice.
No worries.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Now, I know we have to say goodnight to you, Chris, or good day, since it's Friday there.
Good day.
It's all right. I just
but I know
emailed
you
him
had-
to say I'm going to be a few minutes late, so I will hang around for a few more minutes. But if I disappear suddenly, you'll know why.
Excellent. I'm gonna skip over a couple things in segment 3, just because Chris had something to share, and since there was a pitfall that he discovered, we were talking about some classroom applications when we were planning tonight's show, and we're using Google Sites in a number of ways. And I was going to share something my students are doing, but Chris is with the Year 8 and Year 10 students, which is basically our equivalent of 8th grade and 10th grade, is it not, Chris?
Yep.
And you've got this science research project, and you said that you found a pitfall. I'd be interested in hearing about that so that we can help people avoid things, learn from our experiences.
Sure. Well, a lot of this is new to me, but we have our Year 8s and our Year 10s, or grade 8 and 10 students. They do this science research project every year. It's like an independent research project. And in the past, they've just done it on, books, notepads, pieces of paper, and submitted physical documentation to the teacher. This year, for the first time, we're using sites. So the science department's all very excited about the possibilities of that. To try and make sure that all of the kids covered all of the sort of the key things that need to be covered, so the aim and objective and research and experiment and whatever else they need to do, I was looking into could that be created as a template, and sure enough in Sites it can. You create a document, save it as a template. What I didn't know, the thing that caught me out, was if you create a template and then want to get rid of it, you actually go into the site itself and you remove it as a template. What I did was I actually deleted the site before I turned off the template, and so now if you go to the template list on our main sites page, it still shows there, but it points to a non-existent site.
Oh, okay.
And that just caught me out, and it probably will catch other people out, because you've actually got to turn off the template in the site first, and then it disappears from the main list.
So that's in the settings of the site where it's available as a template, right?
Yeah, when you go into the site and you turn it into a template, you've also got to go in there and turn it off as a template.
Okay.
And what we did, I created the site as an experiment, realised it worked, then thought it went away and made a proper one, and wanted to get rid of the first one, so I thought, oh, that's easy, I'll just delete the site and it'll go away. No. You have to turn it off as a template first before you delete the site, otherwise you're stuck with this phantom, non-existent site in your templates.
Oh, and you can't go back and remove it from templates because the site's not there to change the setting in anymore.
Correct.
Okay.
Got it.
So,
Interesting, good to know. Well, I'm actually really interested because our 6th graders did a science project thing, like almost exactly what you're talking about, and it was their science teacher who initiated it. And I believe he used the Google Science Fair template and then modified it and made his own template based on that to have it be a little bit more specific to his needs. And I'm going to want to make sure I look at that with him so I see how he's got it set up. That way, if he goes and changes it for next year or does something different, it's not going to, like what you said, have something that's trying to point you to something that's not there anymore. But that's good to know. I wouldn't have thought of that.
The other question I'll just ask, you guys might have an answer for me, is because the naming of a site is well, in our case it's school-wide, maybe it's district-wide for you guys, Do you use a naming convention of some sort to make sure that once a student claims the name of a site, that it's then it's not available for anyone else? So you can't call it my science site because obviously, well, you could, but that excludes it then from everybody else. Is there a solution you guys have for doing that?
Usually I have them put their name in it somewhere, but they're only allowed to use their first name. But that's going to start to be a problem because by the time my current 6th graders are in 8th grade, they'll be making their 5th and 6th sites in the past 3 to 4 years. So I've got to make sure that there's something else about the name of it. It'll be like survey. This year I had the kids put survey 6 and then their first name because it's their 6th grade survey project, because they'll do a survey project in 7th grade and a survey project in 8th grade plus some other sites. So there's a good chance these kids will have 7 or 8 sites when they graduate. That it total,
totally.
They all have to have different names.
And then when you multiply that across the school, you end up with potentially thousands of sites.
Right, because we also get kids with the same, first name and last initial combinations. Sean, did you have an idea that you use?
I use sites a lot, and I try and just incorporate the date whenever I can. Because if you do something, the chances that I'm going to do use the same site with in February of 2012, so I just add that 212 at the end of the site. As the date, and then it keeps so I could do a math workshop, 212, 312, 412. And keep going, and it's always going to be that math workshop. But by adding the date,
I've always created the sites for students for doing group work. We did biomes. I will create the site from a template and do all the naming for them, so they don't have to mess with it.
Oh yeah, no, because I've got 80 kids going to be making sites in the next couple weeks. Plus the 53 that just made theirs, so there's no way I'm doing that.
For sure. Another option, I mean, this does get a little bit more complicated, but you could make one site and then give each kid a page.
Yeah, that's what our teachers do.
Works for some applications. That way you don't have tons of sites.
In our case, each student has a site with multiple pages because they're having pages for different purposes. I do link to them from another site and have a link to each of their separate sites, but that would end up being completely unwieldy. Plus, I want them to kind of think about when they're making a site, divide your content up into pages and don't have too much for anybody to read, and they shouldn't have to scroll down more than twice to read anything on a page. You don't want to have too much information, and if they're doing a heavy-duty site, I want them to think about breaking it up. We've replaced the trifold board, science projects in 6th grade with the site. Instead of cramming everything on one page, I'd rather have it divided up in a logical way. So I'm glad you brought that up, Chris, because that's something I'm going to look into with. I haven't used sites like templates of sites because I usually have the kids create them from scratch, but I am going to look into that with that science teacher to make sure he doesn't delete that site that he made as a template.
We almost need a your domain / username / whatever they call the site. If that was the default setting, that would help a little bit.
That would be handy, and I don't think there's a way for us to set that up, right?
You'd have to type it in manually.
Oh, okay, yeah.
No one's going to do that.
No.
Well, and in the case of my students, their last name is part of their username, and I don't really want to have that on there because they do get people publicly going to their sites. So, yeah, I'm going to have to think about that if that needs to be changed. But you bring up a good point. You're going to want to be thinking about what you're having students name sites instead of just letting them name it anything.
Yeah, I like that idea of having a subfolder for each student, and then they can call it whatever they like because their choices aren't affecting other people. But the way it's currently set up, it does.
Yeah, and the same principles apply to documents. Google Docs has kind of thrown a lot of teachers for a loop in terms of document management, and because it just kind of shows up in your Docs feed, making sure that students are following your naming convention is critical if you're ever going to find those documents. And that's something that teachers aren't really used to, and students aren't used to either. But if you don't call it the right thing and you do a search, that document's lost.
I'm finding that the search doesn't always work for me. It doesn't always get me all the things I want, and sometimes it's not the kid's fault. But if I instead of searching for a string of characters, if I narrow down by the type of file or shared with me versus owned by me and things like that, I can usually find it. But there are times when we will type something in, something does not come back as a hit, but then if I look for it, I do have it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that's just fluky in our domain or what the deal is.
Yeah.
Now,
our teachers
do we
have had a
wanna-
really hard time with mastering and feeling comfortable with finding and managing documents to and from students. It's really a big training piece. You know, coming from the file-centric, folder-centric Microsoft products to Google Docs it's a big change.
Yeah.
It is.
It is.
But I guess I've had them naming files a certain way for me for quite a few years, so they're for the most part they're used to it. I still get kids doing it wrong every class. But,
We're about to implement Hapara, so when we do that, I'll have to
Wow.
let you guys know how that's working out.
Yeah, interesting you mentioned that because that was a discussion at the Chromebook Summit as well, and I don't know if you're aware of this, Chris, but they moved to San Francisco. They're in an incubator, education incubator program in San Fran. And
Hapara moved?
are they the Google App Management?
So
product?
for listeners who are not familiar with Hapara, just want to explain to them what that is, and then we'll jump into the next item.
Go ahead, Chris. You know more than I
me
do.
explain? Well, look, it's a student management console basically. So it's a layer that sits. Well, I haven't used it yet, so I'm talking out of my hat a little bit. But it's a student management layer that sits on top of your apps installation. And in our case, it's going to be fed from our student management system, so that the huge bulk of students that are currently sitting in one kind of unorganised pile in our dashboard will be organised into classes, and teachers will have access to see what they're doing in their docs, and to, if we choose to allow it, to let teachers see what's happening with their Gmail feed. And it just is a way for teachers to monitor what's going on in their class. Hapara.com, I think, is the link if you want to go and have a look. But once we get it set up, I'll give you more of a heads up on it, and we might even get the guy who created it. I think his name's Jan Zadalski or something. He's a Polish name, and he lives in Auckland at the moment, as far as I'm aware. We might be able to get him on the show to talk about it, perhaps.
Yeah, Chris, I'm pretty sure that they very, very recently moved to the Bay Area. Mark Wagner,
That would make sense.
Who knows everybody, had dinner with them after the Chromebook Summit. I flew out too early to join them, but this looks really, really good. And we should do a longer segment on that sometime, but it really looks like it could solve some of the management document sharing. It's kind of an SIS or system for Google Apps that helps teachers manage documents and students.
Well, Dorothy Burt, who is quite a well-known GCT, who teaches in Auckland, or I think it's in Auckland, but in New Zealand. Her school was actually the school that was the pilot for building Hapara. And so she's been right through. So again, Dorothy would be a great one to get on the show and talk about it.
Yeah, we'll have to put that in the show note. It looks really good. It is a startup. It's pretty new. I don't have any pricing details. I don't even know if it's available publicly. I just know that it looks really promising.
Yep. All right, I'm going to have to shoot off, guys. It's been fun. Enjoy the rest of the show. I'll talk to you next week.
Bye, Chris.
Bye, Chris.
See you later. Bye.
All right. See you later, Chris. Thank you. So do we want to circle back and hit some of those Chromebook Ninja tips from the Chromebook Summit last week, and then continue on with our last segment?
Yeah, I'll just throw in a couple. I mean, there's tons that we can share, and we can possibly add some in future show notes. But a couple of neat tips. So these are shortcuts and little features that work in Google Chrome. So if you're a Chrome user, here are some things that you could try out. If you ever accidentally close a tab, you click the wrong button, you mean to open a new tab, but you close it accidentally. If you do Control-Shift-T or Command-Shift-T, it will reopen that tab. It's kind of like the Control-Z, the undo for your web browser. And it actually goes back really far. So you can, if you closed the tab like 15 minutes ago and you're like, oh, I wish I had that, I don't remember the URL, if you just do Control-Shift-T 5, 6, 7 times, it'll bring them up. So that's a neat tip. Another one, I love the Alt-Tab to flip between windows, and that doesn't work anymore if you are using tabs because it's one window. So if you do Control-Tab, you can flip between your open tabs. So that's an option that you can try out, which is neat. So those are two tips for you.
Neat.
Cool.
And that opening old tabs, that goes back to, I think, 10 old tabs?
Oh, it'll go back that many steps? That's
Yeah.
good to know. Excellent. All right. So I'm not sure how we're doing on time. We mentioned earlier that both Chris and I have been using sites, and I'm sure you guys have been too.
Yes.
But one of the projects I am more than happy to pimp out for my kids is, can I say pimp on air? Oh my gosh. We're doing survey projects, and as I mentioned before, the kids on 6th grade are, they have just done a science fair project using a Google site. They had, last year they had to make a site for me about one of the chemical elements. They worked with partners on that. And right now they're creating Google sites of their survey projects that they're using Google Forms to gather data for. So if you have not filled in my student surveys, fear not. Even the kids that have enough responses, I've got 7th and 8th graders starting in about a week and a half. So watch me on Twitter and please go and fill those forms in because the kids can use them. But the fun experience of this is I'm seeing how I've been doing this project for a couple of years now. The kids are so much speedier with being able to not just figure out how to click on stuff and, oh, wait, maybe I'll find it over here. Because sites, it's not always intuitive. You kind of have to go digging around. And they are figuring stuff out and teaching each other. I feel like I could prop up a cardboard cutout of myself in the corner and I don't even have to show up to work anymore. The kids are pretty much doing all this stuff without me. Occasionally they'll need my help, but for the most part they don't. So I'm really, really pleased with that. And I think it's just helping them get a little bit more confident and be willing to try things. So I'm all about that. And then we're coming up on 45 minutes, so we did want to throw a little quick shout out to Pam Rickard. I think I'm saying that right. She's a loyal fan, biology teacher.
Hi,
Watches
Pam.
our show regularly.
Thumbs
Hey,
up for
Pam.
biology teachers.
Yeah, we love
Yeah.
science. Sean's a biology teacher. John, are you a
Biology
biology
teachers
teacher?
everywhere.
I am as well.
Awesome. Without biology teachers, there would be no knowledge of life. Okay, so I don't know why, but we've got Pam's Facebook link in the show notes. So Pam, you're about to get a lot of new friends. I think I might, if I don't have you on Facebook, I do have you on Twitter, Pam. So I'm so glad that you're listening. I know Pam was one of our earlier folks to add to the listener map. Don't forget the listener map. But we might have breezed over a few things in our show notes, so there might be bonus material if you are diligent and read through the show notes. And I think that's going to cover it for this week. We were a little bit scattered, but boy, was this show chock full of good information or what? I am so psyched to go and start researching Chromebooks, and I'm really pushing to get them at my school. So that's the plan. I'll be excited to share about that. In fact, that'll be a good thing for both Kim and I to share. John, it sounds like you've been working with Chromebooks for a while at your school.
Actually, my school doesn't have them. We have iPads.
Wow.
But I
Funny you didn't
anything
mention
Google
that
I
in
am
Mountain
into.
But Mountain Dew wanted me to have iPad.
The Chromebooks came out about 6 months after we had already made the iPad decision.
I hate when that happens.
But they certainly are a compelling option. But if anybody is interested in getting, signing up for that trial program, just to get a few to test out, hit me up via Twitter. Sean, I know, also has access to them as well, so either of us can get you hooked up.
Yeah, that is awesome. I think because we've been dragging our feet a little bit. I've intended to get them since we went over to Mountain View in December, my tech guy and I, and we definitely intend to get them. It's just getting someone to actually make it happen. So I may take you guys up on that and try to get a few and just hand it to some kids and say, right, take this through the whole day with you, and then the teachers can see these kids can handle this. Let's do this. I really just want that to happen at my school. So I'll be keeping you guys posted on our adventures with Chromebooks, and hopefully Kim, if you are able to do that too.
Yeah.
Adventures with Chromebooks. We got a title for our show tonight. Okay, so I think that's going to do it for this week. I'm really excited about all these different developments and things to try out. That's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much to John and Chris and Sean and Kim and the man behind the cube. And I'm Diane Main, and that's going to do it for tonight's episode. Please remember to follow at EdReachUS on Twitter. Also, you can like our Facebook page at facebook.com/EdReach. It's a great way to get the latest blog posts, podcasts, and news coming out of EdReach. You can also shoot us an email at googleeducast@edreach.us. Thank you again for joining us. Please remember to continue the conversation at edreach.us, and we will see you next week. Ciao.
You're watching the EdReach Network.